Tough times never last, but tough people do. A very warm, fresh, and energetic afternoon to one and all present here. I welcome you all for today's webinar, indeed, an interactive session on the entrepreneurial edge hosted by Asian Education Group. There is nothing more beautiful than someone who goes out of their way to make life beautiful for others. With this motivational thought, it is our privilege that today we have amongst us our esteemed guest, Mr. Jayesh Parikh, Managing Partner, Good Startup, Jungle Ventures, and co-founder, Sony Entertainment Television, to share his success story and enlighten us with his expertise, wisdom, and knowledge. Mr. Jayesh is one of the founders of Sony Entertainment Television, a major television network launched in collaboration with Sony Japan. He is a board member of Shimaru Entertainment, Media and Entertainment, One Animation, Special Effects, and eBus TV commercial digital distribution. Mr. Jayesh is an active angel investor with investment in various venture capital funds in Silicon Valley and startup enterprises across the technology and media space. Prior to the above ventures, he spent over 12 years at IBM in various technical, sales, and marketing positions based in Houston and Singapore, and part of the team that brought IBM back to India. Mr. Jayesh is on the investment committee of Avishkar India 2 Fund, which is a social impact fund. He served on the board of United Way International for 6 years, as was on the board of Song, a fund owned by Soros, Omidyar Network, and Google, which invests in SEMEs in India that meet social objectives. Talking about Mr. Jayesh's academic career, he holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda in India, and a master's degree in electrical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. He is an entrepreneur in residence at INSEAD, a Thai charter member, a Thai angel, and a member of the Indian Angel Network. Mr. Jayesh is now a Singapore citizen and lives in Singapore with his family. Asian Education Group wholeheartedly welcomes you, sir.
Thank you so much, Rachita and Mr. Ravi Sharma, Asian Business School, Asian Education Group, and all of you for joining in and for inviting me to this prestigious webinar. So, all the things that Rachita spoke about is really on a paper, and I want to actually go through the same thing and give you a different flavor of exactly the same thing. And so I hope that, you now see what a person goes through and then what comes out on a piece of paper and how you get introduced. So I want to tell you my journey so as to instill hope and optimism in each one of you, because my journey started in Calcutta, which is now known as Kolkata, St. Lawrence High School, very humble beginning. Did not have TV at home. I didn't have a car. We were from a middle class family, and then I did my electrical engineering, as Rachita mentioned, in MS University of Baroda. After that, I actually got admission and I joined IIM Calcutta, and I spent 2 trimesters there. But the adventure in me, helped me to drop out of IIM Calcutta, and so I dropped out of IIM Calcutta, and then I flew for the first time in my life on a plane to Austin in Texas, and I had $100 in my pocket then. So this is a typical story of Indian humble immigrant beginnings. And instead of doing MBA, where you don't get any assistantship easily, I did a master's MSEE electrical engineering from the University of Texas at Austin. I worked as a research assistant to pay my fees and bills, and after graduating, I worked for the university as a research engineer for the University of Texas at Austin. So that was my first job, and they helped me get a green card, right, sponsored by the university. After that, I moved to IBM in Houston and went through one of the best marketing schools at IBM and worked with the oil industry. My customer was Chevron. And along the way, I also got my US citizenship. So like this is, sort of dream come true. You just go through a journey. But then I got a call from IBM that said, hey, can you please come and help us start IBM in India again? So there was no IBM in India from 1978 to 1988. And this operation, which was called offshore operations, actually started from Singapore. So from Singapore, we used to fly every other week and to India. And this operation became hugely successful. There were 4 teams in that group. And we finally were successful enough to where IBM physically moved into India. They asked me to move to Bangalore, and which I said no back then, and then said go back to Houston, and I said no. I declined both of them, and I became a forced entrepreneur and continued to live in Singapore. The interesting thing is today, IBM's largest headcount in the world is actually in India, followed by USA. And so it started from a headcount of 0 before we came on board. Subsequently, because I became a forced entrepreneur, I did a few startups, but the one which is obviously most interesting is Sony Entertainment Television. And that really was a happenstance because I got invited to join this startup team. And that startup team included a few entrepreneur friends of mine, but it also included Shemaru, the video company, right? So a lot of you must be watching songs or movies by Shemaru, but also the actor Jackie Shroff. And so we were this group of people which first started to go out on our own, but Sony Pictures Entertainment, which is Columbia TriStar, which is a division of Sony Corporation of Japan, found us, and there's a long story behind that as to how it ended up, but we ended up doing a joint venture, and the joint venture is now the TV channel series called network of channels, which is called Sony Entertainment Television. So we started with a one general entertainment channel, and then we started a movie channel called Max, Sony Max. There was a One Alliance distribution joint venture with Discovery. We bought over Sub TV, renamed that. Then there's a sports channel called Six, a music channel called Mix, some regional channels, and then a Max 2. So there was a whole network of channels. But the interesting thing that we are proud about is that we taught the Americans who were on our board and our partners, we taught them cricket because they had no idea about cricket. So they all knew baseball. And so we brought them into the cricket world and then explained to them the power of cricket. And then we actually went out and won the rights for World Cup cricket. So that's how Sony Entertainment Television got into cricket. Subsequently, then thanks to the senior management of Sony, and we all got together and we thought about and ideated on the next version of cricket, and that was IPL. And so IPL is currently going on right now, though it's not on Sony, it's on Hotstar, Star. But we were sort of the first pioneers, and then of course we also brought in Indian Idol, Kaun Banega Crorepati, and there were some major movies that were made on set. And finally, in 2013, we exited out, and Sony had the first right of refusal. So the 7 of us Indian partners, we sold our shares and exited out of that very successfully, I might say as well. And then along the way, I also got invited and I took the citizenship of Singapore in 2008, and I gave up my US citizenship, which was one of the better decisions that I've made in my life to become a Singaporean. So after I exited out of Sony, I tried to retire, and that retirement lasted all of 9 months. I went for Vipassana. I went to the Gandhi Ashram in Sabarmati in Ahmedabad and did some seva. I did some binge traveling because I hadn't really, seen the world. But that didn't last too long. And then when I resurfaced, there were 2 founders whom I introduced. One is Anurag and Amit, who are the founders of Jungle Ventures. I introduced them, and then they started and asked me to be a managing partner in Jungle Ventures. And Jungle Ventures is a technology cross-border Asian fund based in Singapore. And so I was a managing partner in Fund 1 and 2. Mr. Ratan Tata was a special advisor to us. And now currently I'm a senior advisor now for Jungle Ventures, and it's got asset under management of about $350 million. They're on Fund 3 now. I'm, of course, as mentioned by Rachita, on several boards, but the one noteworthy is the one that I really enjoy the most is that I'm an advisor to Akhanda Jyoti Eye Hospital, which is an NGO. It's a nonprofit in Bihar. And they do 65,000 cataract operations every year, 80% of them for free. And they have a gender equity program also called Football to Eyeball, where girls from villages come to play soccer and football, and then they join the optometry and optician diploma or degree program. And this is by far the most satisfying role. Recently, I also became an advisor to a company called VMAT, which is Vistas Media, and they basically did a SPAC. So these days, special purpose acquisition company is also known as a blank check company. So I helped them because it's a media acquisition and a SPAC. So I helped them do that. Then in 2019, I compiled a book of interview, and the name of that book is "What Shall We Do with All This Money?" And it's inspiring perspectives on wealth. And this book is not about how to live your life, or it's not about investment guide for your personal wealth, or it's not going to help you become rich, or how to manage your money. It is actually a book on utilization of wealth. Whatever your amount you have, it's not meant for only affluent people, it's for everyone. Everybody focuses on making money, but I've tried to focus on how to utilize your money. What's the best way that utilize your money? So present day, fast forwarding, I am now a managing partner of Good Protein Fund. So the name of the fund that we are launching this month is called Good Protein Fund, which is a $25 million US venture capital fund exclusively to invest in alternative protein. So some of you may have heard of alternative protein companies like Beyond Meat, Impossible Burgers, etc. These are companies that we will invest in are three types. One is plant-based startups, cell-based, and fermentation. These are the three types of alternative proteins. And it's really an intersection of economics, technology, and impact. And so currently, the alternative protein market is worldwide is about $20 billion. And it will go to about $200 billion in the next 10 years. By 2050, it will go to about $1 trillion. Basically, the idea here is that animal protein is not sustainable as the population grows. And this is a huge movement in China, India, USA, Israel, Germany, and Singapore. All of these countries are really focused on startups and investments in startups in these technologies. So I've made 2 attempts to retire. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. That hasn't worked. And I'm absolutely delighted that I'm now doing an intersection of technology, economics, and impact. But yeah, so that's sort of, now you can see that from where I came and where I'm at now, and how it got transcribed onto that piece of paper, and the wonderful introduction that Rachita did. But Rachita, I'm more than happy now to actually do the most interesting part of this webinar, which is really the question and answer, which is why I'm here.
Absolutely, sir. And in fact, no doubt, sir, we are in fact, the audience and our dear students, all of us are looking forward to have this very interactive and a wonderful round, that is Q&A round. Wonderful. Each and every word, that you have said is very motivating and truly inspiring, sir. You have actually proved this statement: whatever you want to achieve, like all your dreams can come true if you have that courage and zeal to pursue that. You have actually proved it, sir. So students are very curious to know more about your journey and your valuable inputs on various aspects of management and entrepreneurship. So there are a couple of questions, sir, they want to ask. So can I proceed with
yes,
it?
Please. Yes, yeah. Look forward.
Okay, sir. So first question coming to you, sir. According to Forbes, more than 92% of the startups fail. What motivated you to fund startups?
Okay, good question. So first, you must understand the psyche of entrepreneurs, right? Because entrepreneurship is basically living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. The genesis of this whole thing starts from the risk-taking ability. And so if you take risk-taking, it's not just limited to one time, it's multiple times. And so what I'm always looking for is people, you come out of college and some of them do a startup. There are people who quit their job and they do a startup. Then you do something called OPM, which is other people's money, right? So you take other people's money, whether it's angel investors, whether it's venture capital fund, and then that's serious growth money from venture capital fund, and then you finally exit. So the risk of failure, right, is really something that each one of the entrepreneur needs to always keep at the top of my mind. 92% of startups fail is one way to look at it, but then 8% of entrepreneurs succeed like no other's business. And a venture capital or an angel investor typically is the name of the game. You don't invest in one startup and hope that that wins. You don't invest in 2 startups and hope that one of the 2 will work. It doesn't, right? Because 1 out of 10 basically only makes it. Therefore, unless you build a portfolio of 10, 20, 30 companies, right, of which then 1 or 2 or 3 will become chappar fadke, I mean, really go all out, right? And then, so they will succeed such that it will wipe out all the previous losses and failures, but in the sense that it will actually return you a lot more money. So one is about economic returns. The second is, of course, I actually thrive on watching entrepreneurs succeed. And so whatever I can do, capital is just one piece of it, right? The other piece of it is that it requires mentorship. It requires strategy issues. It requires product issues, product market fit issues. It's got sales and distribution and revenue issues. So I would suggest that it's not just limited to capital, but yes, I'm absolutely delighted that I have the ability and the capital to be able to help as many entrepreneurs as possible. And in that entrepreneurship also, there are two types. So one is, of course, the technology entrepreneurs, tech entrepreneurs as we call them, but the other is the social impact entrepreneurs. And I'm absolutely delighted to support people who have a mission, right, who have a social impact. But it's a combination of economics and impact. So it's not just limited to a nonprofit, but it's somebody. So whether it's edutech, whether it's agri-tech, whether it's health tech, right, all of these are solving problems of water, sanitation, waste management. All of these are huge economic problems, and problems which have economics behind it, and also, of course, it has social impact. So I would suggest and recommend that, if you have the risk-taking ability, because this is not for the faint-hearted, please come to the entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely true, sir. Very true. In fact, believe in yourself and go for it. This is something, I think, a motto of any entrepreneur. So,
Yes.
next question coming to you. How is your way of funding different from any other angel investors? And what is the one thing which you look for first in a startup before considering to fund it?
Yeah. So I think, I already mentioned the risk-taking ability. So I'm judging and trying to discuss and figure out, is this person trying to build a $1 million company, a $10 million company, a $100 million company? What is this person's enthusiasm, passion, risk-taking ability to grow this? Because the bigger you try to grow, there are chances that it may not make it, right? And so therefore that's one. But I think the questions that I ask first are who, what, and how, right? And so who, what, and how. So, and there is one more question that I'll come back to at the end. So who is the leadership, right? And so is the leadership have integrity, credibility, the education, the experience, right? Are they smart? Are they savvy? Are they shrewd? Are they cunning, right? I go through that filtering. And in many cases, if that filter doesn't happen, I'm done. So the most important thing is who is the team? Because, even if the thought of the idea or the, whatever the product they're trying to make, if it somehow falters in between, there are chances that you can pivot. But if the team is really amazing and really, enthusiastic, smart, has a savvy, then you can always work on it. So that's the who. Second one is what. So what is the big problem that they're trying to solve? Is it a useful product or service that is innovative and scalable? Is it disruptive? Right. So that's the what. What's the problem that these people are trying to solve? And then third, of course, which is very important, once you go past the who and the what, is how. How will you be able to execute it? So is it a deliberate strategy, and is there an emerging strategy? And then do they have understanding of the difference between a deliberate strategy and emerging strategy? And because a startup never starts with a business plan that takes it through the next 10 years, right? You got to keep fine-tuning, filtering, etc. So deliberate strategy, emerging strategy. So, I mean, have they done rigorous research? Do they have deep insight into technology? Have they figured out the product market fit? Are they aware of competition, right? Are they truly people are saying, oh, there is no product like this, right? There are many entrepreneurs who will say there is no product like this. Then I worry. Is it that because it can't be done, or is because there is no demand for it? So don't tell me that there is nobody who's ever doing this. So that's one. And then are you able to build and manage a strong team? Do you have the ability to grow and scale? So these are the one set of questions. Now, I also ask one very, very important question. And that question is why? Why do you want to do this startup, right? Is this just an idea? Is it innovative? Is it disrupt? Is it addressing a pain point, etc.? What is your thing? And therefore, when it comes to the social impact, guys, the social enterprise, it becomes a lot easier for them, because if their passion is that they want to get animal out of the food system, then that's a huge mission for me, for example, now. And so why is it that they're motivated? And there are some people motivated by economics and saying, I want to become a billionaire. That's good. There's no right or wrong answer in this. But there are some people who are driven by providing a useful product or service to the marketplace. And so that why becomes extremely important for me as well. So yeah, so this is really the first level of what I look for.
That's very true, sir. Indeed, in fact, when we say you have an idea, so if you convert it into some action, some strategy, I think then it becomes a magic that we are looking for.
Yes.
So yes, sir. Great, sir. Moving further to another question for you. Apart from an amazing entrepreneur, you are also known to bring IBM to India. How did you get this title?
Yes. No, actually, it's not me alone. So most importantly, so the whole reason for this is that during 1978, essentially companies like IBM, companies like Coke, they were asked to give majority equity to India and Indians, which these multinational companies did not agree to. And therefore, they were asked to vacate. And so they left India. And so in 1988, there is a gentleman called Dan Gupta who was with IBM when IBM closed shop in India. And he went to Armonk, which is the headquarters of IBM, and kept going there. And he probably made something like 28 trips and kept hammering on the board and the CEO of IBM to say, hey, India is an incredibly strategic country. In the future, it's going to be a phenomenal country, and we cannot ignore it. And then finally, they said, yes, okay, but you can't physically go into India because you still have those issues. And he said, okay, I will do it from offshore operations. So Dan then went on to hire 4 teams within IBM of people who were experienced of Indian origin, NRIs. So NRIs who knew India, but who understood the IBM product line and had experience in the IBM. So people were recruited like me. I came from US. There was another gentleman who came from Houston. One came from Australia. So all these people congregated in Singapore, and there were 4 teams that were formed. I was one of the teams who took care of process industry, which includes oil and chemicals and petroleum and pharmaceuticals. So that's, and then there was somebody doing banking and manufacturing, etc. So banking, and one was doing manufacturing. So essentially, this team came together for a period of about 4 to 5 years from Singapore, and then did a joint venture with Tata. So there was a Tata IBM in the beginning, and so majority was owned by IBM. But then in due course, Mr. Tata figured out that this is too big a problem that they're trying to solve, and these are huge empire builders. And so he gracefully bowed out. I'm sure I got a good exit from IBM, and then now IBM is 100% now in India, and have done incredibly well. And now IBM products are available in India, as well as, of course, the software development industry has given the IBM a massive platform in India.
Indeed, sir. Very true, sir. Next question coming to you, sir. Is your investment more focused in the field of Internet of Things? And the second part of it, what brings your interest in this event?
Yeah. So I'm not focused on Internet of Things, by the way. It's just that as an individual, as an angel investor, I use platforms like Indian Angel Network. I use platforms like AngelList. And so these are platforms where a lot of angels come together and they invest together. Then I have a band of angels. Some of us, we invest together, both in technology space as well as in social impact space. But nowadays, I'm doing more through the venture capital platform, right? So now I'm only doing this Good Protein Fund, but previously I was only doing Jungle Ventures. And of course, I did a lot of social impact investing through Avishkar as well, right? So Avishkar is now like $1 billion platform, which has 6 funds. But yeah, so in terms of technology, I am not particularly stuck on any one of them. I studied blockchain. I studied cryptocurrency. At one phase, I participated in it also. I bought some Bitcoins and sold them off because I just didn't see how this is a sustainable future solution with the kind of energy that it consumes. So principle-wise, it just doesn't make sense to me. And then also there was a lot of issues about the transparency in terms of the use of something like a Bitcoin. And so I mean, again, it's mushrooming, it's growing in leaps and bounds. But I really focus on 3 things. I focus on startups that deal with cash flow. So they've got a good economic solution, cash flow, user flow, somebody who has a startup which has a lot of users, they figured out how the user flows, or the third one is data flow. So if you focus on cash flow, user flow, or data flow, or some combination thereof, those one or two things, I think that's really where I see the future.
That's very true, sir. In fact, what I can understand from whatever you have said, just be fearless and keep on experimenting. And let's see what will be the result. Okay, so the next question coming to you, sir. In today's era, when COVID-19 is still troubling us and contracting our economy so much, your suggestions on how a budding entrepreneur should take his or her venture forward?
Yeah, I'd say that unless you are directly doing a startup which is in healthcare or health tech, I wouldn't be too bogged down by this thing. Meaning, COVID is here. It is not a good situation right now, especially in India. But if you recognize the power of Zoom and interaction that we are doing through digital platforms right now, if you have an idea now and you find your team through Zoom and WhatsApp, etc., I think now you have peaceful time. So before you had to have physical office and the infrastructure and hiring people to come together into a room and then you go through the ideation. The only difference now is that you're ideating on a Zoom. Ideation is still ideation. I mean, there are no excuses for that. Oh yeah, you know what? Because of COVID, I'm not able to ideate. Well, hello. If you have an idea, which is useful product or service, you should be able to find a bunch of friends or co-founders or startup guys and ideate. Two, you figure out the technology, you figure out the product, you figure out the cash flow, you figure out the budgets. Now you've got the starting point. Now, during this time, are the angel investors still active? Yes. Are the venture capital funds still active? Yes. So go at it, right? Now, you don't need as much money as you used to need before. Why? Because you don't have a physical infrastructure. You don't have, people traveling, for example, etc. So to that extent, you can go for the next 3 months, 6 months building a product. So if you're building a technology product which requires a hardware platform where physically people need to come together, then that's a tough one. But if you're trying to build a software product, right, then I think that's a lot easier. Whether it's mobile payment gateways, etc. So there are so many different cloud-based, AWS-based. So there are so many different opportunities today in technology where you can start building that product, the MVP, the minimum viable product you can build. You can start testing it out online also. So if your product is something that is going to be distributed online, you can start testing that online, right? Whether it's a social media platform, whether it's Amazon, whatever those platforms are, on which you are trying to distribute their product. So there is you can go 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years actually, until one day, if it really push comes to shove and you need to start, my hope is that everything fades out and everything goes back to normal in the next foreseeable 1 or 2 years, and then things go back to normal. So my take is, yes, the mindset is only difference is that you're not physically able to go and travel and meet people. So if there is something that requires you to sell door to door, then you're not able to do it. So you need to change your mindset right now to say, what kind of startups will work? Well, those ones which are hardware, where you need a team of 15, 20 engineers coming together to build a hardware, probably you hold it back. Or two, something that requires knocking on door to door, going from company to company, well, you hold these kind of startups up. But there are so many white spaces. White spaces are spaces where there is opportunity to disrupt, right? And I think we should go at it. I mean, there is blockchain, it's fintech, it's health tech, edutech, AI, IoT, remote work solutions. There will be in the next 10 years replacements for large companies. Go back 20 years and look at the top 10 companies, and they had companies like GE and IBM and Exxon and Mobil and all those. Where are they now? AT&T, they are not there. Now it's Apple and Google and Facebook, Amazon and Netflix. Well, so now if you go another 10 years forward, you think that that's it. For the next 10, 20 years, these are the only companies that will stay. No, they will start fading out in some form or the form, because there are other solutions that will come out to overtake this with some new technologies, new ideas, new thoughts, right? So I mean, people thought that, well, what can Netflix do? And you look at the interface and how dramatically easy it is and interesting it is, and how it remembers, and with AI and all that presents you some other, say, hey, you watched Panchayat, or you watched Bandish Bandit on Amazon Prime, then it's, oh wow, if you like those, then hey, how about watching this? Fantastic. You're giving me something I like. I don't have to go searching and asking you, Rachita, आपने क्या देखा? अरे आपने क्या देखा? अरे वो अच्छा program है. अरे यार वो तो बहुत ही उसमें मारामारी था. There was a lot of violence in it. I don't like violence, but Netflix knows that I don't like violence, right? I like rom-com movies, for example. So I'm saying, I mean, the future opportunities are increasing even much, much more than now, because the disruption is going to happen across the board. All the old school things that we have been using in the past, they will all come. Look at electrical vehicles, right? The EV is here to stay. It's just amazing future now, whether it's battery, whether EV related to two-wheelers, four-wheelers. You look at Tesla's ride. So again, the point is, there is no dearth of opportunities, including esports, right? Think of esports. People all thought, okay, esports doesn't hold you back. If you're doing esports, you're developing a game, or you're doing a distribution, or you're doing a platform on esports, nothing is holding you back. You're not like looking for stadiums like IPL stadiums which are empty. You don't look for that, right? You're looking at something which is, online, right? So there you have it.
Sir, that's truly amazing. And you accept a challenge and convert this into an opportunity. I think that is what we call a true entrepreneur, a true leader. So another question, sir, as students are very excited to know, everybody knows you as a business tycoon, but your contribution as an agent of social impact is tremendous. Which one defines you better, an entrepreneur or an agent of social impact?
Yeah, so I think the value system with which I grew up was a middle class values. And I thank my parents for giving me that unfair advantage, because they gave me middle class values. And I grew up in a humble beginning, as I mentioned to you in the beginning, and that has never left me. That unfair advantage of middle class value system has always stayed with me. And so to me, the biggest joy, as I mentioned, is serving Akhand Jyoti Eye Hospital, for example, Avishkar, social impact investments. Now my new fund, Good Protein Fund, again, social impact. So no issue in life to say it is really the utilization of wealth, utilization of your mind, utilization of your time should all focus on a mission, purpose. And I'm just so delighted because millennials, next generation, is more and more interested in impact and purpose along with economics, and not just economics, like my generation.
Totally agree, sir. Currently, the challenging situation that we all are facing, you are a true example of how to convert such challenges or such issues into opportunities. Another question, sir, for you. There is buzz among the prospective entrepreneurs that the angel investors might take control of the venture in future. How strong is the myth?
There is nothing that has happened in the last 20 years that is different in the next 20 years. Capital is just one piece of it. Angel investors, they provide capital, they provide strategy, they provide board seats, they provide mentoring, they provide advisory roles, they provide their network of influence. That's what angel investors do. The really central pivot and a focal point of all startups is the entrepreneur, the founder. That founder, entrepreneur, promoter is really the only person who has a 360-degree view. Neither does the angel investor, nor do the customers, nor do the staff and the professionals and the employees. Nobody has that 360-degree view like the founder entrepreneur. And so really the challenge to all entrepreneurs and founders is to make sure that you provide that leadership, you absorb that leadership, you exercise that leadership, and you control that leadership. There is no angel investor who goes into a startup, puts in some money, and his only interest is to take control. Because if he takes control, then he or she has to run it. And that's not really what an angel investor does, right? Angel investor is investing in one company, two companies. Like I mentioned, you should build a portfolio of companies, not necessarily in one company to then take control of that company and make the founder or entrepreneur an employee. Because if they wanted to do that, they should just do their own startup and hire some people, right? And become that businessman. So mentality between an entrepreneur and a businessman, is different. And so you have to, as an entrepreneur, promoter, founder, you have to exercise, right, that 360-degree view.
So as everybody knows you as a business tycoon, now if you can please share with us your future plans. What are your future plans now?
Yeah, so I think I already mentioned to you that I've now become another venture capital. I started a venture capital fund. So I have become a VC fund manager. And so I'm going to now invest. So it's a $25 million US fund where my partner Gautam and Gautam moved from Silicon Valley to Singapore. And now we're starting this fund here in Singapore, which is going to do cross-border investment all over the world, exclusively in alternative protein, which is plant-based, cell-based, and fermentation or recombinant, it's called. Again, very exciting technology. Essentially, it's replacing the animal protein with alternative protein, right? And it reuses a lot of ingredients, which is like soy and peas protein and chickpeas, and in India, for example, millet, right? And these are all the ingredients. And so this new technology in that plant-based technology is right now winning. So we are investing a lot of money in plant-based technology, the startups right now. But cell-based is really the future. So these are animal cells which are grown outside the animal. So without killing animals, you're growing that animal protein. So anybody who wants that cell-based food in the future, especially for people who are non-vegetarians, that's a healthier option, which has no bacteria, no antibiotics, right? So, all of that is excluded from this, which is lab grown meat. So, and then there's the fermentation. So this is really my future for the next 10 years. I want to build 3 funds. This is the first fund, and it's a small fund of $25 million, and then I want to grow that, over time. But yeah, this is where I'm headed now.
That's great, sir. Such a great idea. And in fact, we all are looking forward, to such products in the market. So next question coming to you. What is more important in building an enterprise? An idea, capital, riskability, or planning and implementation? And another part of this question is, which factor relates to your entrepreneurship style?
Yeah. So I think there is not one of those 4 that can win the race. You need all of those to come together. So if your idea is not good, but you have capital, it doesn't matter. If you have an idea, but you don't have capital, it doesn't matter. You don't build a good team, it doesn't matter. You don't build a good product, doesn't matter. You might have a product, but you don't know how to distribute it, it doesn't matter. So you must have really all the vectors aligning and going north. If one vector is going east, one is going west, one is going north, one is going south, it is all disjointed. Vectors have to align. And really, that's the biggest job of a founder and an entrepreneur, which is to make sure that you align all of these things. So if anybody feels that I better focus on one thing out of those 4, then they might miss the boat. You have to really fire on all cylinders. And it's really, again, going back to it's a 360-degree view. So it's really taking all the people that you hire and bringing their energies together to a certain outcome that you want. That's what this is all about.
Okay, that's great, sir. Sir, your book titles, What Shall We Do With All This Money? Inspiring Perspectives on Wealth. So what wealth advice would you like to offer to all youngsters aiming high in their life?
I think that the biggest issue in everybody's mind in the beginning is wealth affluence. So everybody focuses on how to make money, but that's only a small piece of the pie. Where I am focusing on this in the book is I've interviewed people from different parts of sectors. So these are interviews with heroes and unsung heroes from various walks of life, right? Like chairmen, senior executives, entrepreneurs, businessmen, lawyers, private bankers, professors, social impactors, futurists. There are gurus. There are millennials of Indian diaspora, and they are from USA, UK, Africa, Dubai, Singapore, Malaysia. We are trying to bring together. What I did is I tried to bring together a perspective on utilization of wealth. So people get hugely focused on accumulation of wealth, but here, what I'm trying to appeal to, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, whatever that amount of money you have, what is the best way to utilize it, assuming you have a little bit more than what you need. Now, of course, there are big giants who have billions of dollars who still don't think that they have enough. But that's a different point, because they do contribute to the society through their nonprofits and their charitable organizations. But in general, for people who are entrepreneurial mindset in this group who's listening to us, I think it's really to focus on making sure that your heart is in the right place, right? So your mind can make you wealthy and make you affluent, and your heart will make sure that you do utilize that wealth for the good of the society.
That's very well said, sir. Sir, this is a question from my own curiosity. And in fact, we have faculty members also who are listening to you currently. So is it really important to train your children, which might be, say, age of 10 years, 11 years, to how to develop wealth management? So do you really feel that there's it's a major need, if you talk about the current situation, to help your children understand wealth management?
Yeah. So let's split it into two parts. One is till they become teenagers, probably even a couple of years after that, 15 years, you teach them the value of money. That's all as a parent you can do.
Mm.
After that, you start getting into wealth related issues, which means how are you going to manage your money, right? So originally it is value of money, then management of money. You go through college, and then you learn how to manage wealth when you have more than what is required by you. Or in wealthy families, they have issues where they need to teach their children how to manage the family's wealth, because they are being managed by patriarchs, right? Or the senior people. And then in due course, they want to transfer that to the youngsters. Now, two parts there. One is the patriarchs or the wealthy individuals, the old people, can just transfer the skills as is, where is, in which case the world will never be a better place. Then the world will never progress. What you have to do is to teach them the tools and techniques of wealth management. But after that, leave it to the kids, the millennials, the next generation of affluent kids today, affluent families today, are more interested in mission, are more interested in purpose. And so you must allow them then to say, okay, this is a pot of money. How do I dissect it into two parts? One, which is going to continue to make sure that the family continues to live well, or whatever that well is, the standard of living. But there is a piece which is carved out, which is going to do good to the world, whether it's social enterprise, social impact investing, whether it's microfinance, whether it's nonprofit. But if the next generation wants to do that, then you must give that next generation the freedom to live their life according to their standards and their mission and their purpose. And so, yes, absolutely, value of money, managing money, and protecting and creating more wealth. Each one has its time. But at the age of 10, I would recommend that you should let your kids play. It's a time for them to learn and play and get educated, not get bogged down into how to invest their money.
Very, very well said, sir. I think it's, more early we start like working or, thinking a lot about money, I think the more depressed we get. So this is what I believe. But definitely, so wealth management is a major part, as you mentioned. We all should learn how to manage the pocket money, how to manage our salaries and everything. So, sir, a couple of questions, again, because the students are very curious to know about your journey. So how you managed to get out of this pandemic phase? I mean, if we talk about your personal journey, so is it boon or ban for the boon or bane for the economy in your words? Students
I
wants to know.
think that it's going forward, you can't but be optimistic and hopeful. There is no life if you're not hopeful and you're not optimistic.
Yeah.
We've gone through world wars, we've gone through plagues, we've gone through health problems like SARS in the past, we've gone through terrorism in the past. Uh, at no point in the life of this world and earth has there never been a problem. There's always been a problem, and we've always overcome it. Sometimes it takes 5, 10 years when it's a war, but sometimes there are terrorism related issues which take a little bit longer to sort out. This pandemic, absolutely right now, you can't see beyond, but look at a country like Singapore. It has done pretty well. Look at a country like Australia. Look at a country like New Zealand. So the civic sense, the public sentiment is that they will take uh, things a lot more conservatively than people do in India. Maybe it's our risk-taking ability, or maybe it is because the government is unable to enforce because of the populations, or it is because there is just not enough understanding amongst various sectors of the people out there. Whatever those reasons are, uh, at some point this has to be reined in. You have to exercise control, and people have to listen and put on masks and use sanitizers and do those things by locking themselves in, like it's going on right now in many parts of India. But I think on the other side of it, everything will open up again. Work life may be different. There might be, not all 5 days, like 6 day work week immediately. There might be, like here in Singapore, where 50% of the people could go to work. Last Monday, they raised it to 75%. In the next few months, we are hoping that we'll be able to travel again. Once you have taken vaccination, you'll be able to travel again. You'll be able to go to office at 100% of the people. I think that will be the leadership that countries like Singapore, Australia, New Zealand will show, which some of the other countries will overcome. And then as in more and more people get vaccinated, life will certainly go back to normal. I have no doubts in my mind that, at the point in time, you feel that, oh my God, this is never ending, and it shall pass too.
Very true, sir. It shall pass too. So, sir, listening to you, it has been a wonderful journey, and we all have seen that. So, students they really want to know, how did you manage such challenges like, ideas, competition, challenges around you? So, were you able to cope up with all those things?
I am quite privileged that I have enough level of oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine in me to always be living in full of hope and optimism, can-do attitude. And so, again, it's really the DNA that either you have hereditary or you cultivate over time. But the more and more you cultivate these things and make yourself enthusiastic and passionate, and you love the world, and you love what you're doing, and you do things, whatever you're doing, you love doing, or you find things that you love to do and do those. That's what I. So my personal journey is got three-pronged tiers in my life, and the first one is wealth affluence. Right, so all of us work to get to a point. Wealth is whatever wealth means to you. Wealth can be 1 lakh, 10 lakh, 1 crore. It different for different amount for different people, depending on the circumstances. So one is wealth affluence. Once you go past and overcome then wealth affluence, and you overcome the insecurity of money, the next thing is time affluence. Right, so time affluence is saying I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whomever I want. Right, so I'm practicing time affluence. So that's the freedom that I have, which is that I'm not bogged down morning to night. And then the third most important is mind affluence. So mind affluence is basically am I happy? Right, is mind affluence is you find happiness, calm, mindfulness, compassion, meditation, yoga, spiritual ascent. Right, all of that leads to mind affluence, and I'm far from that. I'm transiting between from wealth to time affluence, and from time affluence to mind affluence.
That's wonderful, sir. So now, to make this entire conversation more interesting and exciting, we have one rapid fire round, sir, with you. So
ready.
Where you have to give quick answers to a couple
Sure.
of my questions.
Sure.
Okay. So very first question coming to you. What is the most memorable moment of your life? If you would share. Yeah.
The decision that I made to go to America, that was an adventure. I dropped out of IIM Calcutta, which is, everybody told me it was going to be a silly thing to do, but dropping out of IIM and going to America.
That's great, sir. Who inspires you the most in your life?
I think people who have spiritual ascent and who have faith in divinity, I think they inspire me because they are so far ahead of me, and I just love their journey. So I'd say people who are in spiritual ascent, they inspire me.
So what, according to you, is more important in life? Fame, money, or power?
None of them.
How were your college days, sir? One best memory of your college days.
Phenomenal. Absolutely. I mean, look, so I went to 3 colleges, right? So it's extremely
Okay.
difficult to give you through this, but I'd say I remember the time that I went to the University of Texas at Austin, right? In Austin, and one of my roommate was leaving, and he sold his car to me for $500, and that was the most memorable thing. That's the first time I ever owned a car in my life.
Great, sir. Great. Sir, the best thing you feel to do in a weekend?
Oh, definitely meditate. Vipassana meditation, number one. Two, go
Okay,
for a walk on the beach.
that's great, sir. So what is the one thing which keeps you motivated?
Oh, I think impact, social impact, purpose, mindfulness, these things motivate me.
That's wonderful, sir. So what, last question from all of us, what piece of advice would you like to give to all our budding managers and leaders for tomorrow?
So the advice I'd give you, I'd give you four advice. You asked me for one, but I'll give you four. First is focus on your executive decision making, right? So you listen to your academics, you listen to corporate advisors, mentors, VCs, entrepreneur, team, customers. You'll have many opposing views. And then you, as an entrepreneur, have to make a decision. So you develop a 360-degree view, right? So system one is your gut feel. System two is where you're analyzing. And you have to develop that system one, which is your gut feel. So when you come across a situation, you have a resume, the person is in front of you, you have to make a gut decision. The resume is saying that this guy's from IIM Ahmedabad, this guy's from here, this guy's from there, all this fantastic. But is that person going to have the attitude? Is he going to fit into the chemistry of my organization? So executive decision making, number one. Number two, at your age, Rachita, and I'm assuming the rest of the listeners and viewers are your age, you will be living a life of 120 to 150 years. Okay? So train to do long-term strategy and planning, right? Don't take shortcuts. Don't jump. Somebody's giving me 2,000 rupees more per month and somebody's doing this and somebody that's, so you flip flop, trying to find shortcuts to just go through the ups. But at some point, it's going to get caught up because you will reach your level of competence at some point, right? So you reach a level of incompetence then. So Peter's principle says you reach a level of incompetence and that's it. Then you're done. And so the sooner you reach it, the faster you'll saturate. And so don't do that. You're going to live 120 to 150 years life. If you graduate at the age of 25 and you're going to retire no longer at the age of 60, 70, 80, you're going to retire and you might keep working for, again, healthy life, right? I'm talking about healthy living. Your life, entrepreneurial and or career will be very long. So be careful of that. Third, unbeknownst to popular belief, you must do two extremes. One is multitasking. Multitasking, which is continuous partial attention. Can you thrive on multitasking? So people say, hey, never do two things at the same time, right? You do this or you do that. And there are people who will be on their phone watching TV and talking to their friends on WhatsApp, etc. They are playing esports games while there's a TV blaring or some music is going and you're studying. Those days when we grew up, you have to do one thing: shut the music, shut the TV, study. That's what life was about. Now, unless you can multitask, right, you'll be left behind. So how do you do that, and how do you manage that one most important thing out of the two or three things you're doing? So if you're doing email and listening to music, you got to focus 70% of your time, 75% focus on the email and a little bit less time on them listening to music, and meditation. So multitasking and meditation cohabitate between those two parts. And then the last thing, the fourth thing I would say is that there is a hearsay, things that you hear from people or read on WhatsApp. One is your experience, right? So you experience things yourself. One is somebody told you. Second is you hear it. And the third is your personal belief system, right? There are things that you believe in. So whether it's saving the animals and or whether it's sustainability, whether it's the environment, whatever your personal belief system that you really, really believe in, the balance is between these three. You hear things, you experience things, and then you have a personal belief system. You balance those three, and that's where life intersects.
Such truly inspiring words, sir. There is no shortcut to achieve success in life. And I think believe in yourself if you really want to do something. So I'm sure that our students must be feeling highly motivated and inspired by your words, sir. and will surely implement all these learnings in their lives. So now, as we have reached towards the end of this very insightful webinar, indeed a very interesting one, on the behalf of the respected chairman, all the three directors, deans, HODs, faculty members, our dear students, and the entire AEG family, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to you, sir, for enlightening us with a gracious presence, and would also like to present a memento as a token of thanks. Can we have a memento, please?
Wow, this is so special. See, I've never had a virtual memento given to me, but
Yes,
wow,
sir.
thank you so much. And
This is
Rachita,
for
I
you,
really
sir.
enjoyed thinking. I really enjoyed this interactive webinar. You did a terrific job, and I want
Thank
to
you
also
so much.
thank Mr. Ravi Sharma for giving me this opportunity in this prestigious webinar series that you have. You've had lots of dignitaries on this show, and so I really appreciate it. But I really enjoyed Rachita. You did a terrific job.
Thank you so much, sir. Once again, I really want to thank you for sharing such valuable and thoughtful insights with all of us, your great journey. And Asian Education Group looks forward to a long-term association with you, sir. Thank you so much.
Take care. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.